The SMA founder, the Venerable Melchior de Mariam Breziek, is an example of this calling to be a missionary. He first went to India with the Paris Foreign Mission Society on 12 April 1842. After 12 years, and by then a disillusioned bishop, he resigned and returned to France via Rome. The desire for missionary service still continued to burn in the heart of the young bishop. On 26 February 1856, Rome formally stated that Bishop de Marion Breziek was allowed to go to Africa, provided that he set up a group of like-minded missionaries to continue the mission. With the help of some excellent priest volunteers, new aspirants, and many friends and contacts, the work of laying the foundations for the new society intensified. Happily, the Society of African Missions, SMA, was formally consecrated to Our Lady at the great shrine of Our Lady of Fervor, overlooking the city of Lyon in France, on 8 December 1856. Eventually, joining the 4 missionaries who had departed France earlier, the bishop founder, with 2 new missionaries, arrived at Freetown on 14th May 1859 to find a city in a state of terror, in the grips of a yellow fever epidemic. Within 3 weeks of the founder's arrival, 3 fellow missionaries had died. Then, the founder himself grew gravely ill. On the morning of 25th June 1859, the founder, suffering spiritually and physically, died in agony with just a whisper of faith, hope, and charity on his lips. He was 45 years old. For all intents and purposes, this missionary venture had failed. However, like the mythical bird called the phoenix that lived for 5 or 6 centuries in the Arabian desert, and after burning itself on a funeral pyre, rose from the ashes with renewed youth to live through another cycle, the newly founded Society of SMA rose again. Many priests, knowing full well that they were almost certain of dying young, still joined and went forth to foreign shores in Africa, preaching the liberating message of the gospel. The SMA membership rose to great heights and today are still strong in numbers with 748 full membership. It's this spirit of self-sacrifice that still inspires many men to join and go to foreign lands within Africa and even among people of African origin elsewhere in the world. Thus, the SMA was gifted to Zambia with the arrival of its first priests in early 1973. Zambia was not its traditional mission territory, but with circumstances beyond their control, the SMA embarked on this new venture. It was proven to be a great act of trust and faith, and paid back to its members in graces and blessings beyond all imaginable.
On the 14th of January, Sexton Dorn and Mikaigo, they flew to Zambia.
The real reason why we came to Zambia, of course, was that first of all, the civil war in Nigeria had made people think about not having all their personnel in one area, all our eggs in one basket type of thing. So the society looked around to find alternative missions. And of course, we came to Africa and Zambia first as a pastoral teaching team. And the idea was that the teaching men would help to support the people in the parishes, because the parishes were not all self-supporting at that time. And the parish will always remain the foundation of all of the other ministries. Attending the sick and building up the kind of Christian community by administering the sacraments, organising courses for the laity and giving retreats to them. You have to give up a lot of things to be a missionary and to leave your own people, and that's what a missionary means, leaving your own diocese, your own country, and going on to another territory and working in another country. That's a real challenge, and a very exciting challenge, and certainly I would feel a very rewarding challenge.
One of the most important ways of spreading God's kingdom to the local population is through the building of churches. This was an aspect of ministry that Father Michael Eigel, SMA, was involved in.
I built a church in Labuto in '76, and the one in Ndeke as well, round about the same time. And then that continued on. When I went to Kitwe, I did the same. And then when I came back years and years later to Francisdale, I built a number of churches. And there were very little mud churches with thatched roofs on them now, like Moinge A and Moinge B, and places like that. Even Bonamakuba, we had no church at all in Bonamakuba, you know. So there was a lot of work to be done to get land and get it surveyed, and then get the plans and get them approved and all that. But it was worth it in the end. I got satisfaction out of it. So the way I look at it is everyone kind of uses their talents to the best of their ability, and that was my talent, and I used it as much as I could.
Father Doran, in the meantime, has gone to the Lord, and Father Eigel is 92 years old now, and we wish him well. These have been frontier men in the story of the SMA in Zambia.
And 12 days later, the three teachers came. That was Benno Wolf, PJ Gormley, and myself.
Father Noel Oregon, later to be Bishop Noel, and Father Porrick Kelly joined the SMA missionary effort to Zambia.
I think about 3 weeks after I arrived, I began working there. I was a teacher initially, and I absolutely loved it.
I was appointed to Botondo Secondary School, which is on the borders of Zaire. And I had only one term done there when it seems the Bishop of Ndola approached the CEO of Copperbelt, Chief Education Officer, and asked him if he would transfer me from the secondary school to the Teacher Training College in Mufulira, which was training primary school trainee teachers.
So there were good 5 years. We trained 130 teachers every year. And in the 5 years I was there, we had involved in the training about 650 primary school teachers who went out to all parts of Zambia.
The SMA members began to make big contributions to the running of the diocese, as Bishop Noel explains.
I had some training in the East African Pastoral Institute, and then I was in charge of catechetics in the diocese for 6 years, from 78 to 83.
Even towards the educating of seminarian students to the Catholic priesthood, the SMA members were ready to help because they had fully qualified members. Father Michael O'Shea, SMA, explains.
Father Padraig Kelly came. He was the regional superior then after Sexton Dorn, and he said they're very stuck for staff in Mpima Major Seminary. That was in Kabwe, in a different diocese too. It was in Lusaka Archdiocese at that time. Will you go? So I said, well, how long have I to think? And well, he said, I want an answer now. Just like that. So anyway, I said, will you go and have a cup of tea or something and let me think for a minute? And okay, I suppose I was trying to think, but I realized that like it's either go or don't go. So I told him, okay, I'll go. And at the beginning it was just to help for 3 months, but 3 months became something like 30 years. So I was in formation work for the rest of my life then, or seminary work.
To Ndola, he asked me would I go to the seminary, and I went there, and but before I went to Rome to do a course in spirituality. I did a number of courses, and I felt now equipped to face young African students preparing for the priesthood. And I spent 12 years there, and they were very happy years, and I enjoyed it very much.
Even within the Diocese of Ndola, there was a very new pastoral approach brought about by the extremely forward-thinking Bishop Dion, who had been recently installed. Bishop Noel explains.
Now, Bishop Dion came along, and he got the idea from the AMASEA, the Association of Bishops' Conferences of Eastern Africa, and he introduced small Christian communities. And the way in which they worked was each parish was divided into a number of different communities, and usually the parish decided on a day when all of the communities would meet together. And the bishop's one of his ideas was to make sure that Christianity doesn't become just something that we practice on Sunday and after that we forget about it. But he also wanted some midweek day when Christians would come together and pray and listen to the Word of God and decide on some common action. So this happened then throughout the parish. Each parish had its groups meeting, and they prayed and they listened to the Word of God, and they decided on some social action or charitable action where they lived, to visit the sick or to go to the hospital or to help someone who was badly off. They all found many ways, and because it was a poor community, so they found many ways to be of valuable assistance. The SMA took it on board really seriously, perhaps more seriously than others. And we did in our parishes. We had meetings taking place throughout the parishes every week. And also the priest took it upon himself to visit these communities every week, a different one each week.
Soon after their arrival, the SMA priests were really peace brokers in helping to bring harmony and cooperation within the diocese.
Parish we were in Francisdale, that would have been a traditional Latin Gregorian chant area. Then this was after Vatican II. So there was also a group which, like ourselves, came on the request of the Bishop Nicholas. Young men who were very full of the spirit of Vatican II, and they were in Chingola, and they wanted to get into the Chibemba, traditional Chibemba songs, not these Latin ones. So they threw out such in their parish, and they both wanted to have their time, but they overlapped at times.
And I think we were broad-minded enough to be able to work with everyone, and we didn't have any hostility with anyone. So we did play an important role in that way in bringing greater harmony and unity into the diocese where we worked.
The SMA within Zambia saw that the need to go to other areas for mission, and therefore the Solwezi area was chosen as a place to go because it was primary evangelizing there.
I particularly wanted to expand because I felt we were dominating Ndola diocese. Because like you had Sexton Dorn was Vicar General. If he was away, I was called in. I was administrator of the cathedral. Nola Regan was in charge of transport. You know, all the important things where their clergy should be involved, they weren't.
For many years in Zambia, we were making exploratory visits to Malawi, to southern Zambia, even into the Congo and to northern Zambia, until finally we decided on moving to Solwezi Diocese, and then roughly at the same time to opening a house in Lusaka.
The founder wanted local clergy when he was in India. Likewise, the SMA missionaries were very involved in encouraging Zambians to become priests.
When I went to Zambia in 1974 with Nola Regan, there were 3 Zambian priests in the Diocese of Ndola. When I left, there was up to 100 Zambian priests. So to me, and then that's not counting the sisters and the lay people who were so involved in the church. Like, we show the people that they could be leaders and promote the faith as they did, you know.
Like from the parish where I was now, there was 7 followed, became ordained within. Well, I was in the council. They were but they were in the seminary when I left it. You know, yeah, there were a lot. You know.
In specialized areas of mission, Father John Horrigan began a school of learning new languages and even translating the liturgical books into languages which had hardly any books in written form.
I was very keen, you know, that we would learn the language ourselves. I started teaching. You get volunteers coming out, you know, and then there were 2 Franciscan brothers came out, and there was a couple of local sisters, you know, and they wanted to learn. Then there was a young fella in the seminary. He saw that every other tribe had their missals in their language, you know, and all the rest. So there was nothing in his language. Now he was going on a year on, I suppose you call it a pastoral year as a student, you know. So he came up to me. I asked Noel. Noel couldn't believe when he arrived, like, you know. And he asked me, what do I do with him? I said, send him up to me, you know. So I made great use of him, and I got a lot of ideas from him and all the rest. And he eventually succeeded me there, you know.
One of the charisms of the society is to hand over the work started by the SMA to a local who will carry on the work of Christ. This was the case when Father P.J. Gormley, who has celebrated his Golden Jubilee of recent years and who has used his talents as a teacher and a developer in Zambia, handed over a parish which he had developed out of where there was no parish before.
Very happy because I've achieved my goal of handing over to another pastor, a shepherd, to lead the people. And it's not a question of losing power or stepping down because of other reasons, but just because I know that we are building, not my ministry, but we're building Christ Church. Has chosen one of our own, Father Rogers Kalima.
After it has gifted the local church with well-educated and dedicated young priests, the SMA charism is such that it regenerates itself in fostering local men to become SMA themselves. And then they go to foreign lands, especially where the gospel is only beginning to be heard. Father Don.
I'm really excited to see, the development that took place, when the Irish confreres came to Zambia in 1973. Of course, it took some years before they started recruiting Zambians, but it was for a good reason. Because, part of our charism is to promote the local clergy. So when they came, they only found a few priests in Ndola diocese, and they had to start consolidating that. And later on, in 1994, now they opened doors now for us Zambians to be SMA priests. And after my ordination, I was sent to Liberia, where I spent 5 years. I was trained by the Irish fathers, the SMA fathers. Throughout my 9 years of formation, I had a father, Michael Shea, who was a tough but a very good man, and he was focused, and he wanted us to remain also focused in our formation. After ordination, as we went out, people started, acknowledging and identifying these skills in us that he instilled in us. We were able to endure, the hardships of mission and be there for the people. Just as they came here learning languages, we also went out and started learning the culture of people. I was parish priest for 5 years in Liberia, and after that, I was singled out to come now and back to Zambia. It was a very rich experience, accompanying these young guys who had felt this call to leave their own country, the Zambians, to go and bring the good news to other countries. I spent about 8 years now forming my fellow Zambians, and I remembered what Father O'Shea used to tell us, and other Irish formators that helped me to get formed as a SMA priest. I had Father Derek Carney, Father Hugh Lagan, and Father, in my last year of formation, I had Father John Dunn. From the 8 years I spent, I had 54 students. And from 54, I'm happy that 2 are going to be ordained this year in 2022 as priests, and 1 actually today is going to be ordained as a deacon in Kenya. We are happy that we are having Zambians who are getting formed by our fellow Zambians, and they are going out there to bring this good news to other people. So this is a big turn, and we owe a lot to our Irish brothers who have made us strong missionaries, and missionaries who are generative, missionaries who are very productive.
And SMAs who are of African origin have been handed on the baton of faith. So much so that they too are being found in Zambia, spreading the kingdom. Father Emmanuel hails from Nigeria, a country with a very deep history of Irish SMAs.
We go to places where people find it difficult to go. And sometimes it may be that we say Christ can only be preached in the city, but it cannot be preached in the villages. So now, as SMA, we should be ready to avail ourselves to go wherever God has sent us through our superiors. And now for us missionaries, we are responding to the call of God given to us through Braziac and handed over to our superiors. And for us as SMA, right from the onset, our own idea is centered on mission, especially in places where Christ is never known. And even where Christ has been known, how can we make him to be known again in a new way, even in cities? Yes, I met SMA priests in my young days. Priests like Father Christopher Omohare, SMA, Father
Bishop Melchior de Maria
Fintan Daly, SMA, Father John Ohe, SMA, Father Martin Nwosu, SMA, among others. Father Martin Nwosu and Father Christopher Omohari are actually from my parish, so we are from the same parish. They took the risk to leave their comfort zone and respond to the call of God. That their courage inspired me so much, and I decided, through the help of God, also to be like them. At the beginning, my parents were not very happy. They were saying that it would be better for me to be a diocesan priest so that they can be seeing me, because I was the last born of the family. My parents were not happy, but later on, when I joined the SMA, they accepted the will of God, and they were even the one praying for me to remain SMA priest. And my father in particular was praying that God should allow him at least to see my ordination before he dies. And God actually answered the prayer of my dad and my mom. And I was ordained on the 14th of July 2018 in Ibadan, in my parish. And I still believe, even though our brothers from Europe may not be becoming priests as they used to be before, there may be a time where they will return back to the original call of God. Since the mission is in God's hands, we leave it in the hand of God, and God will find a way of making instruments to be available to work in his vineyard.
For many years, the Irish SMA Society finds its continuous life because of the various groups of supporters countrywide who pledge to support the SMA cause with financial and spiritual assistance to the education and formation of students to its priesthood. This idea, too, has come full circle. Due to the decreasing financial assistance in Western countries, and is finding new life in the local African people who want to help keep the society alive. Thus, the Friends of SMA was created.
So, in as much as the SMA... we have young SMA seminarians that need to be educated, and at a colossal amount of money. So they need support in educating the seminarians to become our new priests of tomorrow, and they will replace the dwindling numbers of the missionary priests that will be, in essence, going into retirement. So a lot of activities need to be organized. The national executive that has been formed is now going to oversee the various structures that are being created in the respective parishes and centers where the SMA priests operate. The SMA Friends, as we would call ourselves, will support the SMA by having monthly contributions in monetary form. We will do fundraisers to raise funds that will support their activities in the running of their vocation, as well as in educating the seminarians. We will pray for our priests, and at the same time it also creates a kind of family bond. It is important that the SMA survives in Zambia, because their outreach as SMA is good, because they go out into the far-flung places as well, to bring the word to people who are in places that would be considered abandoned. Every 8th of December, we celebrate the feast of the founder member for the SMAs. And incidentally, that is also the feast day for our Immaculate Mary. And on this particular day, all the parishes and centers under which the SMA operate will get together and have a big function in commemoration of our founder.
I am based in Lusaka at St. Teresa Catholic Church. St. Teresa Catholic Church is one of the parishes which is supported by the SMA order. One of the first priests I met was Father Algo, Father Barry, Father Jim was very instrumental in the construction of the multipurpose hall in Chainda. And at any rate, Father Algo was also one of the priests that actually was instrumental in my preparation for baptism. He worked closely with the late Chiwesakunda, Geoffrey Chiwesakunda, who was my godfather. I do appreciate the work of the SMA because they've been very practical. Unless and until all of us get committed and start appreciating that the development, the training, the maintenance of priests is supposed to be done by parishioners, there will be no future for the church in Zambia. The church in Zambia starts from each family in a parish. And this is the responsibility that I would want to share during my tenure as chairperson. I'll go out with a team to ensure that people appreciate what each parishioner, each Christian is supposed to do. The people from Ireland in particular have given us an example that it can be done. They have shown to us that it doesn't require someone to be rich to help. Some of the people who have supported us are not necessarily rich. And I think this is a message that should be preached to local parishioners. I think from the word go, from the founder of the SMA, there was a belief that people should go out and spread the word, go and evangelize. But in so doing, just as the West was able to give, it's now the turn for Africa to give. But again, when you get priests from other countries, you are able to share notes, exchange. So it's a useful, as long as Zambia is also going to give priests to other countries.
As Carolina said, the young African SMA are carrying on the tradition of going out to the far-flung places to preach the gospel.
We are in Kaparu Mission. This mission has 22 outstations, which are divided into two. We are what we call Chuni Zone, which is the swamping area. Then we have also Kaparu Zone, which has also 11 outstations. The other side also 11 outstations. It's really primary evangelization because some outstations we pray under the tree. Because of there's no church, and the people have done a kind of effort to build the church, but they cannot manage to finish. But some outstations we do close them during rain season because they become unreachable because of the terrain, which is very swamping area, and the road is very bad. So we try to maximize during this dry season to visit those outstations. So now, with the SMA, the Society of African Missions, we came here in January 2015, and that's when we opened under the requests of the Bishop of Kabwe, Bishop Clement Mulenga, who invited us to come here. It becomes a very good example for our seminarians, the real meaning of to be missionary, of primary evangelization, to go out and preach the good news, because it's a real rural place where we have the challenge of languages, the outstations, and the ODs, so that when we are telling the student that we want to become SMA, member of the Society of African Missionaries, then they have an idea from Zambia what they want to become. We have 3 kilometers from here, we have a secondary school, but many girls get pregnant because of the structure, girl-child, in this area. Then we have also the problem of climate change, which people are very much affected in this area because of cutting trees and making charcoal. But you can imagine this year, the rain stopped in February, so the harvest was not very good. But the other places, like in Zambia, it was raining perfectly. but here the rain stopped suddenly because of climate change. So our people, they are quite affected because they really depend on their farmers, small-scale farmers, and they depend on that one crop.
The SMA fathers have known some evolution over the years. That Zambia belonged to an entity called the African Foundation that catered for about 16 countries in Africa. And because the numbers had grown, we divided once, where we became 3 entities, and later divided. Now each country is an entity and managing its own mission. And we have grown in numbers. We are 22 ordained, and we have 24 permanent members, 22 priests and 2 deacons who are training to become SMA priests in the near future. So things have evolved so much over the years. So because of the cost of mission and the management of mission, we have gone into investments. We have gone into media for the past maybe 12 years now, because the world has evolved. The world is inclined to media, and our generation now is a media generation. So many people are so much inclined to media, and I think the media has become one of the best channels to preach the word of God to the youths of today and to the world of today. We have also looked at mission through education. And our first school we started was the SMA school in Chipurukusu, and it was essentially meant for the underprivileged. And we are running that community school today. And to support that community school, which is essentially supported by the SMAs and well-wishers, we have built a school in Lusaka, a secondary school in Lusaka, also a primary school in Lusaka. We have built another primary school on the Copper Belt in Kitwe in Malembeka. And these schools are the supporting schools, because we are getting nothing from community schools, so we get also funds from these schools to support our schools. We have also the SMA Retreat Center that is being built by Father PJ in Kitwe. We have the farm, the SMA farm here in Ndola. We have piggeries, we are doing the poultries, and we are also doing vegetable farming, just to improve the farm so that we make it viable, and in the near future use it for our self-sustenance. It is attached to our community school in Chipurukusu, where we do a feeding program for our students. So apart from the feeding program of our students, we also want to earn something so that we can use it for our confreres who are on mission, and also for the training of our priests. It will be a big contributor to our finances. But these ventures, investments, are to help us in the near future to sustain our mission here in Zambia. Yes, the mission of the SMA is not an individual mission, it's the mission of God, it's the mission of the church. And we are aware that many people want to participate in this mission in different ways. Some might be hearing of the SMA for the first time, because we are not in all the dioceses of Zambia, but our mission is an open mission to all the faithful that want to participate in this mission. Those who want to engage themselves in supporting the SMA in various ways, in accompanying us in mission, in their donations towards the mission of the SMA, and also in praying for the missions of the SMA.
The SMA remembers all their confreres who have died all over Africa, a fitting testimony to the heroism of its members who gave their lives to God in order to bring His word to the most abandoned in Africa. And so it is in Zambia, in a rural parish graveyard, where other workers in the vineyard of the Lord laid buried One will find among them 2 SMA members, Brother Brendan Murray and Father Fergus Conlon. Also, Father Brian Kantunasa is buried elsewhere in Zambia. Along with their founder, all of them have gone to their final resting places with the love of African people in their hearts.
I would say the Zambians are lovely people, wonderful people. But when you get to know them, you will like them. So I enjoyed my time with them. It was one of the most, I would say, I've said it already, my most beautiful experiences as a priest. I spent 5 years in Zambia, working in 2 parishes. But I would say I left Zambia crying because I didn't want to go.
Society missions for Africa. Okay. These are priests who have given themselves from the heart to spread the word of God to the continent, Africa.
The SMA believes in missions, going out. That is the essence of the SMA.
Kwa hivyo ningabeba kofiefya kweba ati milimo ya bumishoni ifuire yaba supported na fweba Christian bonse kanchi kutina chita encourage bonse kweba ati twababa ilimbamo mukupakirisha imibombere ya bapatiri besu mu lupwa lwa SMA.
Bamisinga maningi chabeseme zapezeka ko mandini lokwa wama sisi ndiye first time yatu tikabo celebrate hapo mu Zambia chikondole cha so. Okay.
The ultimate sacrifice that the SMA founder, the Venerable Melchior de Mariam Brezier, made in 1856 wasn't in vain. Out of his and his companions' deaths came the beautiful Society of African Missions. It has served to proclaim the liberating message of the gospel to the people of Africa. Many people have answered the call to be an SMA missionary. It lives on today with many people from the non-traditional missionary countries and from people within Africa itself answering the call. The lay support for the society continues and has evolved in that it is also beginning to come from the non-traditional places and from within Africa itself. The mission spirit continues. The Irish SMA priest and brother did help the society to be set up in Zambia. Indeed, we are privileged that some of them are here to tell the story. And even yet, some of them are still on the missions in Zambia. The young Zambian priests are carrying on the torch by being true missionaries themselves. All credit is due to the Zambian church and its families who were willing to give their young men to this great cause. Therefore, this video serves to portray to us the glory of God, how His mission and His will is everlasting and ongoing.